100,000 BC, stone tools. 4,000 BC, the wheel. 9th century AD, gunpowder. 19th century, Eureka, the light bulb. 20th century, the automobile, television, nuclear weapons.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use.
People want their technology to have a sense of humanity. They want it to understand me, you specifically.
We have 3 billion new minds coming online to work with us to solve the grand challenges. The rate at which the technology is getting faster is itself getting faster, to a point that we have the potential to create a world of abundance.
Technology has always changed society, and society has always had time to adapt. But not anymore. Today, change happens at light speed, and with it, new realities are created almost overnight. Experts tell us that the rate of change is continuing to accelerate, and that means that society is going to change faster than anything that humanity has ever experienced before. Futurist Ray Kurzweil predicts that in the next 10 years, the next decade, we're going to experience more technological change than in the previous 1,000 years. Welcome to the era of real-time change. Now, one of the things that's driving all of this change is that there are so many people exchanging information. More than 2.5 billion people today are connected to the web, and more are coming online all the time. And there are literally billions of devices connected to the web. We're generating information at a rate that is unprecedented. I'm told by comScore that 92% of the world's data was created in just the past 2 years. That's an amazing statistic, isn't it? It's just incredible. So when we heard that, I talked to the guys at Live Lab and I said, whoa, hang on a second, we need to know about this. We need to have a conversation about this. People want to know, what's in it for me? What about me? How do I fit into this? How about my family, or my future, or my career, or the people that I work with, the city I live in, our education? Don't we get some say in this future? Don't we get a chance to talk back to the future? And that's what this show is all about. That's why we created this show. I'm Robert Tercek, and this is Inventing the Future. Inventing the Future is a new kind of show. It's a different kind of show. It's designed as an opportunity for real people, people like you, to connect directly with the experts who are driving change, the scientists, the technologists, the entrepreneurs. It's a chance to ask questions and push back, engage in a dialogue, participate meaningfully in a conversation about what comes next after what's next. Now, if that sounds a little futuristic, well, that's perfect. That's exactly right, because that's what this show is all about. Now, one way we intend to do that is to involve not just the live audience, like the folks here today, but also the social stream. Meet Gilliam. Gil, tell us about what you're doing here.
I am a Live Lab social correspondent.
That's cool. It sounds like the social director on a cruise ship. Is that what you're doing?
It's a little something like that. Not exactly,
okay.
But I'm basically monitoring Twitter. So any of you out there in the audience today or online can tune in by commenting or asking us questions using the hashtag ITF.
I like that. Let's make that hashtag trend. Do it, people. Let's tweet this show. So we're constantly driven by a mission as we design the show to say, what are all the new ways we can innovate? What are all the new things that we can think of doing? And so we said, well, let's not just be a news show with a live band. That sounds like a cool idea, but how can we push that a little further? So we said, let's create a brand new musical form, and we call it live composition sound design. Our band is led by 7-time Grammy Award winner Paul Wertico. And the band, appropriate enough, is called What's Next? Go ahead, Professor Wertico, fire it up. Let us hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Vertico and What's Next? I like it. Yeah, it was beautiful. Right in the right spot. He hit that cue perfectly. Well, before we jump into what comes next after What's Next, we thought, wait, we need to stop and get a baseline measurement on what people know about what's now. What's now? And we're in the perfect place to do it because we're coming to you live from Las Vegas at the new Media Expo, where the smartest bloggers in the world have gathered together to talk about the future of their medium. And so we said, all right, let's ask these guys. They're smart about digital media. Let's ask them to take a quiz. We call the quiz the Future Quotient, and our friends at comScore helped us design it. And it's a short test that tests your knowledge about what's happening now. And there are some surprisingly difficult questions. I took the test. It's actually quite a challenging quiz. So we'll tell you about the people who scored the highest on that in just a second. But before we go to the winners, who are in the live audience, what I want to do is invite the people who are watching this live, or even people who are watching it on demand in a day or two. You get a chance to beat the bloggers. All you have to do is go to our Facebook page, where you can take the exact same quiz that was done here with the live group. It's facebook.com, and of course, you'll find the Live Lab Network page there. And you can take that exact same quiz, and so you can see how you score in your knowledge of the digital universe today. Now, Gilliam, tell me, who are our winners? So who are our winners in the audience?
Well, this is kind of a big deal. This is huge.
Okay.
For the survey, we have 3 lovely lady blogger winners today.
On.
Which is super exciting. And their names are Elise Ellis, and her Twitter handle is 6sistersstuff. We got Cheryl Lawson, and her Twitter handle is Party Aficionado. And then we also have Elizabeth Michaud, and her Twitter handle is @eMichaud.
That is cool. Right on. How about
Very
a round
exciting.
of applause for our winners? And let's give them a little Twitter love, folks. So you'll find their information in our Twitter stream at the hashtag ITF. Retweet it, would you, so that the whole world can find out about these smart ladies in the audience. Congratulations to you, women. And we'll continue on with our show here. This week, we're at the kickoff of the Consumer Electronics Show. It's the largest showcase for innovation in the technology world. It's one of the biggest trade shows in the world. Every electronics company on the planet, with a few notable exceptions, is here, and they're showcasing every gadget and gizmo that they've got. Everything from smarter smartphones and new kinds of tablets, bigger ones, smaller ones, and futuristic television sets, but also things like futuristic medical devices and appliances that talk to your car, and robot cars that drive themselves, and autonomous drones that fly in the sky. This is Mecca for nerds and geeks. And we've got a great lineup of guest speakers to help us interpret all this new stuff from CES, including distinguished guests from Accenture and comScore. Oh, but wait, did I say nerds? Well, folks, join me please in a warm welcome to the Nerdist himself. It's Chris Hardwick. You've seen him in movies. You've seen him on television. You've seen him in comedy specials. Here he is. We're seeing him live on stage with us right now.
That's my big face.
There's your face. Join us.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to wait, or I just came out.
That's great. No,
I totally blew it.
That's what it's all about.
Okay,
it's
good.
All live.
Okay,
How are you
good.
doing?
I'm
good.
good.
To see you.
Yes, nice to see you
Thank
too.
you for joining us. You are a guy who has a huge following here, as you can see from a big live audience.
This is a great, nice, stacked room full of yeah.
It's a big room, and everybody wants to know, the big burning question is, how did you manage to hit the nerd sweepstakes? You started a website, a blog, just a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And now somehow you got acquired by a movie studio.
I've always wanted to tell the story over a jazz guitar riff.
Well, that's happening now.
So this actually is a dream come true for me. Now I just feel like I want to tell old road stories. One time we were in Mississippi and some crap went down. I started the. It is weird. Isn't that weird? Is it weird? Is the guitar riff weird under the story? All right, keep going with
You're
it.
good.
That's fine.
Roll with
keep
it.
going. I started the website in 2008.
Yeah.
Really, is just a way to express the things that I wanted to talk about, because I felt like I was being crushed by the entertainment business, which was like, nerd stuff isn't popular.
Right,
we don't care what you think. And so I was like, okay, well, I just needed to satisfy my own sense of creativity. I'm a stand-up comic. I have a stand-up background. I'm used to sort of being kind of freelancey and on my own, and because when you do stand-up, it's just you and a microphone. And so I said, well, I'll just do this as a website, and whatever. If no one reads it, I don't care. At least I'll be creatively satisfied. Then after a while, it got a little more popular. We started a podcast that expanded to a bunch of podcasts. We were able to turn the podcast into a TV show for BBC America.
Wow.
And, and now it's, and then Legendary bought us last year.
Unbelievable. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now what's the story with Legendary? So let's look a little bit at the future.
Yeah.
So what's the idea? What's in it for them? So they bought a whole collection of web properties that you've kind of generated, and then your creative talents as well.
Yeah.
Where are you heading next?
Well, I think, what they saw, because Nerdist is basically, Nerdist merged with a company called Geek Chic Daily,
Yeah,
which
right Peter Levin,
my friend Peter Levin.
Great entrepreneur
and
in LA.
He was sort of the, Peter and I have the perfect working relationship in that, I was mostly creative and a little bit of business, and Peter was mostly business and a little creative, and so we had this really complementary relationship that formed, and neither one of us have egos about the other person. Like, you know what you're doing, I know what I'm doing, let's just do it. And we had the same, we had a shared vision.
Yeah.
Let's create, like authentic content around stuff that we actually care about. Because with nerd culture, I'm so sick of like companies just trying to capitalize on it. Like, this nerd demographic, there's some dollars there. Let's squeeze some money out of that demographic. And it's not always represented the way that it actually is. It's usually they're kind of derisive to the nerds, and we're like, you know what?
You got to embrace the fan culture.
We're all about
and get
celebration.
Into it.
We're all about positivity. We're all about because it was not cool to be into the stuff that I was into when I was growing up, and so we just were like, I don't want anyone to ever feel like it's not cool.
And one of the cool things about the web is everybody who feels like that, and there's a lot of them, they can all find each other now.
Exactly.
They can all talk to each other.
Before, you just had to hang out at a comic book store.
You were by yourself,
or just hide. In my grade school, it was there was the computer lab, was also the chess club, and also the math department, and we would just huddle in there, sweating and in fear of everyone else.
Okay, so you're doing stand-up, you're doing live television, you're doing comedy specials, you got a movie career, you're also running a company. How do you manage all of that?
I'm a really obsessive calendar keeper. I have color-coded calendars for every type of event, like live events, work events, personal events. And so that's how it is. I was a complete screw-up in my 20s, and so I went in the opposite direction, where I just became obsessive about time management.
No, and I know you're busy today, like in a half hour. You've got to go host, you're giving away an award?
Oh, yeah, I'm presenting an award at the IWTV Awards, so Felicia Day and I are presenting an award.
Well, we'll definitely not want to keep you late for that.
No, that's okay.
But let me invite our next guest up, and we'll get him started. So the next topic I'm going to move on to is really about this incredible digital explosion that I mentioned in the beginning of the talk. Every gizmo that's at CES is going to be connected to the web, or soon will be if it isn't already. And so that means we're going to have this tidal wave of data generated by all these devices talking to each other. They call it the Internet of Things.
Sure.
And this is a gigantic trend that's coming soon. Now, to help us understand the implications of that, we thought we'd invite up somebody who's a luminary, who's dedicated his entire career to studying data trends. Our next guest is Gian Fulgoni. He is the founder and chairman of comScore. Ladies and gentlemen, Gian Fulgoni.
Thank you.
Chris, great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. So just the other day, you posted a blog about the 10 burning issues in digital on the comScore blog. Tell me briefly what that was about. What were some of the main highlights there?
So there were 10 of them, and they're up on the comScore website. What we were trying to do was to show the changes that are occurring at a rapid rate on the web. Yeah. And I think there are probably 3 buckets that you could put these 10 things into. The first would be e-commerce and what people are buying on the web. The second would be online advertising, which is growing at a rapid clip. And
so money, and what's the third one?
Money and money, that's certainly the way that one...
The third one is the Spinal Tap Fusion Jazz experimentation.
It might well be, because the last one is the change that all these different devices are causing, which may be the biggest change that we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's what they say. And some pundits are saying that the Internet of Things is going to be bigger than the first wave of the Internet. Do you think that's true?
I think it's very possible. I mean, if you look at the way that people are using these different devices, some of the stats are just unbelievable. 121 million people now have a smartphone in the US. And it's said that today's smartphone would have been the most powerful computer in the world in 1985.
Wow. I always get freaked out by that, by the fact that like my iPhone is more powerful than the Whopper computer from War Games that tried to launch the missiles. That always cracks me up.
Imagine 120 million people having that in their hands. I mean, mean, what they could do with it is pretty astounding. And then you got tablets, of course, where you got 40 million people that are using them, and the rate at which it's growing.
There, like 30% of U.S. households have a tablet. Is that right, or is it probably going up now?
It's 40 million people out of 110 million households, so it's pretty high. But what these devices are causing is a fundamental change in the way that people are consuming content on the internet, right?
That's right.
Which in turn is putting a lot of pressure on the advertisers and their agencies to figure out how best to measure all of this. And it's not easy, posing challenges for us, for sure.
Well, sure, like especially working in television, and it's like the Nielsen ratings don't cover DVR viewings.
Yeah, that's right.
And you kind of go, well, we need like a three-dimensional model, like some sort of a metric that covers cultural brand penetration, as opposed to just like how many people happen to have their TVs on at that time. Because obviously, when people are watching Hulu or they're consuming things on YouTube, there is an awareness. It's getting out in the world.
It's totally true. In fact, you with the kind of niche content that you're doing, it drives really deep into a core audience, and you may have more profound influence with that audience than some of the mass content that's aired on, say, television, mass market stuff.
Right.
But the way we measure content consumption doesn't really reflect that.
Well, I think it's, because I do a podcast and a lot of people listen to it, and I think that, the few 100,000 people that listen to our podcast are more valuable than like 1 million TV viewers, because like with digital content, YouTube podcasts, they're actively consumed, and people go out of their way to share it. They go out of their way to they have a very intimate relationship with, as opposed to just like, they're flipping channels and they, they might watch
sitting
TV
there with a soda and a potato chips or something on the couch.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very passive. I like that idea of active sharing or active consumption. It's a good phrase.
So that's a reality today. So we did a study for NBC this summer looking at how Olympic content was being consumed. And we found that a quarter of all the people that were watching television, watching Olympic content, at the same time were using some electronic device out on the social networks, a quarter of them, which raises some real interesting challenges for how you, if you're an advertiser, again, how do you measure all of this stuff?
Yeah, it's true.
Because you have to measure what's the big challenge, and I think that this is kind of at the heart of it. You need to measure the duplicated and then the unduplicated audiences across all these devices at the show level. And there is no way you're going to solve that particular challenge with 10,000 or 20,000 people. You need to do it with millions.
You're referring to the way we measure TV audiences today, which in a way it's a little bit old-fashioned. Your company doesn't do this, but I know there are companies that measure TV audiences with like a panel. And they expect people to fill out like a diary. Is it still how they do it?
It's done electronically, but it's still a sample of people. And samples are fine, and you need to measure the person. You need to know the demographics who's in front of the TV or who's on the device. But if you've got to do that across all of these devices, and a lot of it is simultaneous usage, and you have to do it down at the show level, you're just not going to be able to solve it with a small sample size. And so it's bringing the need for scale, if you will. And we're building out a system right now for ESPN to measure 5 different platforms, including radio, and we're having to do it with about 5 million
That's a great client
people represented.
ESPN's at the forefront of all of this stuff. They were the first to be on mobile, they were the first on tablets, and they're very aggressive about following their audience at these new devices.
Well, sports, turns out that sports content is the most consumed across all of these devices.
Well, sports channels are keeping cable alive.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I think a lot of the lower end cable channels are suffering from people going, why would I spend extra for a channel? I mean, I worked at G4, which just got knocked off the tree.
That's true.
It's like, why are people going to pay more for a premium channel package when they can get free content online? But I think it's all going to, I think the idea of networks and television, it's all going to be app-based, brand-based. There's going to be some iOS on your screen that's going to merge everything. You don't even know what channel numbers are now.
We hope at a future CES they come out with the unified screen, right? The one access to everything, whether it's from the web or from Netflix or from Hulu or
unified
TV.
field theory.
On top of all of this advertising-related stuff, and going back to the monetization theme again, just a couple of comments on e-commerce, all right, which is now a $300 billion business in the United States. And if you look at how much consumers are spending online relative to what they spend with their discretionary dollars in total, 1 in every $10 of discretionary spending is now being done on the internet. And that's great for the consumer. They're getting better prices. But again, I guess nothing comes without some disadvantages. And I think from the retailer perspective, it's putting some real pressures on them from a pricing perspective. And as the channel shifts online, if you're a retailer and you're not holding on to your market share as the channel shifts, you could be in a world of hurt
well,
down the road.
We've seen that. You know, for instance, I know just a decade ago, Borders didn't think digital was important. They said, it's not strategically significant. So they did a partnership with Amazon, and look where that got them. They're gone as a company. Now Amazon accounts for, some people say if you take automobiles and gasoline out of the equation, Amazon accounts for 10% of US retail spending in the United States. That's an astonishing number. It's like one store that controls 10% of your wallet. Do you think that's true?
I don't think it's Amazon alone, but I think if you take the e-commerce in total, it is about 10%.
On the other hand, that means 90% is still being that spending still happening in a store, so they're not quite finished.
But the rate of growth, here's where it comes into play, all right? The rate of growth of e-commerce right now, it's running at about 16, 17% per year. All consumer spending at retail is only running at about a 3% growth. So you've got a really massive shift of spending that's going on to the internet.
Is there more spending because people, there's almost like a weird Vegas mentality when you're buying, like, because you're not actually seeing money. Yeah, you're not seeing money change hands. You're just like, totally you go, oh, Amazon Prime, what, I can have that, you know, I can have that Chewbacca Kigurumi tomorrow, great. And then you click it, and you don't even really think about it. So has spending gone up as a result of not having to see money change?
You'll see it every month on your credit card statement. That's when you get reminded as to how much you spent. But you know, again, the numbers are staggering. But it's great for the consumer because they're getting from the internet. They're getting lower prices. They're getting the convenience of shopping at home without having to go to the physical stores, and they're getting a far bigger selection. But again, it's putting pressure on the stores. We will probably see the stores of the physical stores of the future be a lot smaller, and they might well be showrooms.
Well, that's the big fear, right? That they're worried about people walking in with smartphones who are literally showrooming the store. So they walk around and they're shopping on their mobile phones while they're in the shop.
So half of the people with smartphones do that. So they go into the store, they touch and feel, take up a lot of salesperson time, and then when you think they're about ready to buy,
then the salesperson turns around and you red laser that code, and it's like bam, and then you buy.
I mean, some of the stores are trying some really tricky things to try to prevent that in-store experience. Again, some of it is good for the consumer. They're offering, some of these physical store retailers are offering to match any price that you can find on the internet. Yeah, it's great.
And they're also ramping up their e-commerce and their mobile. In other words, they're not out of tricks. They've got some responses. They're also doing cool things in stores now to bring the internet into the store. So for instance, there's a diesel shop in Madrid that has a Facebook-enabled mirror. And it's out in public. It's not in one of the dressing rooms, but you can try on an outfit and then go to this mirror. It's really a video screen. And you punch in your Facebook, you log into Facebook, and then you can share that picture from the store right out there with all your friends. And of course, they can tell you to buy the thing that you're trying on because you look fantastic in it. I mean, it's kind of a cool idea.
Well, and also, like, especially, if we get like NFC, and you can just walk. A couple years ago at CES, one of the coolest things I saw actually was not a huge story, but it was to demonstrate inductive charging services. And it was basically this electronic ink that you could run a current through, and it would, it would light up the box and animate the box. So I think we're going to have to see more really cool future, basically like the film business, create experiences for people in retail environments where they will go, oh, I should get out of my house to go see that thing that I can't experience.
You got to increase the experience in the store, right? And there's stores that I don't like to shop at. And the cool thing today is I don't have to go to those stores because I can subscribe to stuff on Amazon. 10 years ago, if you told me you're going to subscribe to toilet paper and dog food, I would be like, what are you talking about? But it makes so much sense with Prime.
You just have to make cool...
The food that just comes to you.
I mean, look at Apple. They gave us devices that we thought the future would have. Like, just look at Minority Report and then just do that, and that's what people will want.
Well, the Apple Store is a great example of where the in-store experience is very, very different from a lot of other stores. And we might well see a day where these stores, especially in the downtown areas where you're talking about really expensive real estate, they're not going to be used to warehouse product. You'll go in there, touch and feel, experience a product, and then they'll ship it to you and you'll get it the same day. That is what apparently Amazon is going to unveil.
Can a robot bring it to me? Because if a robot brings it to me, that would be awesome.
It'll come in a Google-enabled car without a driver is probably what will happen.
In a Johnny Cab. That would be awesome.
Good movie. We're ripping on the future here. Chris, I need to be cognizant of the fact that you're pressed for time, so I don't want to keep you too long. It's probably time for me to bring our next guest onto the show. I want to thank you very kindly for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you.
Nice to meet you.
Chris Hardwick from the Nerdist. How about a round of applause? Thank you, folks. Jen, you can stay.
All right.
Next, it's my pleasure to welcome our final guest. And this is a man who spends his entire career studying technology. He works for one of the most dynamic companies in the world. He is the managing director of Accenture Technology Labs. Folks, join me in welcoming Kelly Dempski. Kelly. Thanks for coming. Great to see you.
Kelly, how you doing?
Well, thank you for making time for us. I know this is a busy time for you because it's like all the toys are out. So thanks for stepping away from CES to join us here. You spent all your time studying this. What exactly is it that you do for Accenture?
So it's my job to tell our clients exactly how they're going to take advantage of all this new technology to better interact with their customers.
Yeah.
And so they look at us to try to make sense of all this new technology.
Okay.
And so I look at three main things that are changing. And I encoded them into one word because, frankly, I have a hard time remembering things. So the three things I think are most important are social. And everyone talks about social, and
there's a lot of buzz around that, yeah.
A lot of people say, oh, yeah, that's Facebook. I said, no, it's also just the social interactions, the social influence that everyone has on each other. And maybe my friend is more influential than the Super Bowl ad, perhaps, maybe. The second thing, the LO part of slope, is the location. And you talked about showrooming and such. You know, what's interesting is do this experiment. Go into one of your favorite retailers, walk into the store and bring up their mobile app, and you'll probably find that it's the exact same app, exact same experience that you had at home.
You're so right. You're so right. Like, why can't they know that I'm in their store?
Right.
You know?
So the way to compete with Amazon is to create a compelling experience in your own, backyard. Right.
That's right. So local means like hyper local, right to the moment where I'm at.
Location, by the way, could also mean I'm sitting in my living room. Right. And then the final thing is the PE part of slope is personalization. And what I think is interesting about this is that if you look at one of the major data providers, people that basically supply data online so that you can optimize a web page, one of the major providers says that I'm a 55-year-old single, recent college graduate, recent home buyer. None of that's true, I don't think. But then if you look at Facebook, it has my entire life. If you look at what Pinterest knows, they know that I'm a longtime Accenture employee who was about to re-landscape my yard, right? That's a gold mine to somebody. You look at a Netflix or Hulu, and they know a lot more about me than any other broadcaster really ever did, right? So there's a gulf between what the technology allows you to do and what the current state of the art of using that technology is actually at.
One way to put it is that we've got so much data we don't quite know what to do with it. You probably experience this at comScore, don't you?
We experience it when we try to find people to hire all the time. That's always a challenge. McKinsey did an interesting study on big data where they were pointing out that, we've got this massive amounts of data that if we could only harvest it and leverage it, it would bring really huge benefits. The problem is we just don't have the people that are trained for it to the degree that's needed. So they computed that we needed somewhere around an additional 1.5 to 2 million people who have these deep data analysis skills to leverage all of this.
So at a time when everybody's complaining about job growth and the slow economy and where are the jobs, we worry about robots stealing our jobs. The reality is there's jobs aplenty in this data arena, but we need a certain skill set that's trained for people who know how to retrieve it and store it and analyze it and encode it and tell us how to interpret it.
And it looks like the solution is not... Part of the solution might be to then just re-educate people and change the curriculum, if you will, at the schools, but that's going to take a while, and the more immediate solution might be just retraining people right now, immediately.
Like a boot camp.
Exactly.
Data boot camp, there you go. Well, is that something that you find you have to do? Do you find enough qualified people to do that?
No, not at all.
And how about Accenture? I mean, in a way, you guys are like the technology whisperer for your clients. Your clients are big, gigantic Fortune 500 companies, and if you don't know Accenture, their clients are everybody. Like you're working with every company, right?
And I think there are two layers. One is like the raw analytical skills, basically the math skills, and for a large part there's people that have those skills. I think the tougher part is taking the people that maybe for 20 years have addressed a problem in a certain way and retraining them to completely rethink that problem. I talked to someone the other day who said, I want some new customers, so I'm going to buy a bunch of email addresses, right? I said, no, there's so many new and better things that you can do these days, and they had no sense of what could be done.
Now, one of the things that you're referring to, I think maybe even you talked to me about a little bit, is this idea of connected living or connected life. We hear that phrase tossed around. What do you mean by that?
Well, I look at what's going on like in my living room where often the TV itself is not actually turned on. It's a bunch of people sitting around staring at iPads, staring at Facebook. And
Thank you for talking about the elephant in the living room,
Yeah.
so to speak. This is a reality, right? The TV's on, but everybody in the room has an Apple device in their lap, most likely. Maybe it's a Samsung device now, because they got some cool stuff coming out here at CES. But the TV's on, but it's kind of like visual wallpaper. That's a real issue for the TV companies. I don't think they've woken up to yet. And I'm sure the advertisers that are sponsoring those shows, they share that concern.
When we did this study for NBC looking at this Olympic content consumption, one of maybe the most amazing thing, to me at least, that came out of the study is that while we thought that there might be cannibalization of one device by another, we didn't see any evidence of that. The more devices you give a person, the more total time they will spend consuming media across each device. Now, it does raise the question of whether the attention is kind of getting diluted on any one device. But there's no question that the fear of cannibalization just doesn't appear to be a reality, and the pie is expanding. It's not a zero-sum game at all.
Well, that's music to everybody in Hollywood's ears. I'm glad you said that, because everybody's worried there that TV's going to somehow implode. I think we got some action here in the Twitter sphere. What's happening?
Hi, how's it going?
Going good, thanks. How you doing, Gil?
Good, good, good. I do actually have a question, since we are talking about television here. Nick Cosentino wants to know, where is the future of television heading in 2013?
Wow, so the future of television in 2013. You want to take that for us? Talk about the digital living room.
So what I think is interesting in the danger with something like CES is that I think up until now, right, the television industry has had 50, 60 years where their job has been basically filling a box in the living room with pictures, right? And there's this notion that they should keep doing that.
And more is more. We keep stuffing more channels into the package, and charging more.
I think the future is understanding that the job is not to fill that box. The job is to entertain or inform people in their living room. And people are doing that more through multiple devices, through different devices, different people staring at different screens. And so I think the future of television is that maybe that singular box, 3D, 4K, whatever, right? That singular box is not necessarily where the action's at. It's all that other stuff, either in addition to the box or just separately.
So
that's interesting. It's TV plus is what you're saying. TV and then experiences that spill out of that.
I know I'm not exactly the most normal person, but in my household, the TV is not on most of the time. It's the iPad.
Wow, that is interesting. That's a big behavior shift.
Yeah.
The content that's on the TV, though, is, I think, where the power lies.
That's right.
And what's really interesting is that if you look at what the content owners are doing when they let their content flow onto the web, they are monetizing it with advertising. So they're providing it on a time delayed basis, but you can watch it at on your schedule, right? And what the networks are saying is that they are monetizing that content at higher CPMs than they're getting when the content is running live. And the reasons are the better targeting of the web and what appears to be a higher level of engagement with that ad when they're seeing that ad on the internet. So it's pretty good news, I think.
Just to recap for the folks that don't know ad industry jargon, when you say CPM, you're talking about the cost per mil or cost per thousand viewers.
The cost per thousand impressions, right.
And that's a traditional metric for how we measure audience and sell it to advertisers who are looking for reach. Now, what advertisers clearly want, number one, is reach. They want to reach a great big audience. And so to answer the question, I think the question from the person on Twitter, the future of TV is TV. Because that's still where you can get a gigantic simultaneous audience watching. The web doesn't perform that way. You know, live events on the web don't scale to anything remotely like broadcast television. There's no Super Bowl on the internet yet. It may come in the future. But for the moment, if you want to reach a giant audience, you do it on TV. But if you want to reach a deep, engaged audience, the way Chris Hardwick is doing with Nerdist, well, that interactive, responsive media work really, really well. And then you have these engagement metrics that people are trying to define. So in a way, it's like two different audience behaviors you're measuring.
Still, we need to recognize that there's nothing that compares to TV in terms of getting a large audience in a short period of time. There's nothing that comes close to it, and that's why it's still attracting so many ad dollars. That said, if you look at how much money is being spent on advertising on the internet,
it's
equivalent to about a half of what's spent on television, and it's growing at a rate that's about 5 times faster.
So it's clearly going to catch up.
Look down the road, it's not going to be too long before it might well be bigger.
So let me see if I can summarize where you're coming from, Jan. You're basically saying watch the ad dollars, and where the ad dollars go, that's where the entertainment's going to go.
I think that's a reality of life that
I think it's a great way to
from.
put it, because there's this like, you know, kind of internet utopian vision that somehow we're going to just unbundle TV and you don't have to pay for cable anymore and you're going to get it all on the internet. And I got news for people, if that's what you think, that ain't going to happen. Right. First of all, the whole TV industry is not going to allow that to occur. And they're fairly complex industry with a lot of interlocking parts. It's rather hard to unbundle. Right. The second thing is Chris mentioned a minute ago, sports rights. These deals are 10-year-long deals. Well, those shows are going to continue, those sports events are going to continue to be on television for a very long time. And that buys the entertainment companies enough time to migrate with the audience. So the technology might be there today to watch anything, and certainly the technology there to rip and share anything you want. But if your goal is to monetize it and manage it, I think you're going to start to see the media companies have enough time to manage that migration.
But I think to be a little bit contrarian, what's interesting is if you look at the music industry, right, MP3 players and all that existed for a long time, and there was a very, very embedded industry with a very specific way of doing things. And then, kind of overnight, people like Apple and so on were able to radically change it. I think with TV, we're in a similar spot where basically the technology is there, the raw materials are there, but the embedded business and so on, it hasn't quite changed. But I feel like you just need a little push, right? The same way the iPad and the iTunes, iPod and the iTunes push the music industry over. TV, I don't think is as strong as you think.
I think the TV guys have seen that chart, right? They've seen the chart that says the music industry peaked in 1999, and then it's been kind of this downhill plummet. By the way, the print publishing industry, same chart. It peaked in 1999, and then 50 years of growth was wiped out in just one decade.
Gentlemen,
so,
I also have another actually question for you.
Okay, so Gilliam, hit us. What do you got?
Another question. Jay Villarani wants to know, social media has refueled traditional TV by enabling second screen experiences. How do you see these evolving?
Okay, great. So we're going to be hearing a ton about this at CES for sure, right? Second screen, third screen, fourth screen. You guys are both focused on this, you from the measurement standpoint, and certainly this is the world that you're living in, all these different gizmos. And so tell us a little bit about what to expect at CES with second screen experiences. Is this the year that second screen is really going to click?
I came here for this show, not CES, so yeah, I'll let you answer it.
I think there's probably lots of things you could say, but you know, the thing is, what I think is kind of changing this year is you look at what Microsoft is doing with Smart Glass, and you look at a couple other things where it used to be the second screen was a second completely disconnected screen.
Totally different thing. You got to go get Glue, or you've got to get Viggle, or one of these kind of apps that you might not even know they exist. And honestly, awareness is pretty low from people. I'm sure you can validate that. Most people don't know what that is. So they have to go find something on their tablet when they're watching television. That's a little cumbersome.
Right, and so I think more and more you're having the deals between the content vendors, the deals between the hardware vendors, the reformatting of the content that's now being retooled to serve that kind of experience.
Cool.
But I will though echo your point that the content owners are not gonna, in TV, are not gonna let happen to them what happened to the music industry.
Yeah, they're pretty keenly aware of it. And you see, look, they've got TV everywhere. We didn't talk about that, but that's where you can basically watch your cable channels on your tablet, and gradually they'll get to other devices. So while those might not be winning solutions, because they don't really generate any additional revenue, they preserve the value in the cable subscription. That's all. They're going to try to milk that as long as they can.
Exactly. As long as they, I think, as long as they can monetize it with advertising, you will see that content continue to come onto the internet. And there's another advantage for the content owners of somebody watching their content on the internet as opposed to DVR. You can't fast forward through the internet program that you're watching, so that's worth a lot of money to the content owners.
Yeah, and we have empirical tracking. So in fact, their business gets better as they manage this migration. Okay, so we've got a couple of things in store for you here at the end of the show, and I hope you guys will join me in this last bit here. So to wrap up, I thought we would give you a preview, not of the 3 or 4 hot things to look for at CES, but rather 3 technologies you didn't even know that you need, but once you see them, you're going to really want them. And the first one, no doubt about this, right? 4K TV. Last year it was called 4K. This year the consortium got it together and they came up with a great new name, Ultra High Definition Television. Who needs this?
The same people that needed 3D.
Okay, well, that didn't turn out to be a huge number of people. So it's something like 4 times the resolution of the regular high definition TV. And apparently there's no content for it yet, or very minimal amount of content. Who's shooting in this? And secondly, apparently there's no pipe big enough to push the signal through. So while those TV sets will be on display and you'll definitely lust after those images, I think maybe it may lie a little further in the future before
there's a solution in search of a problem?
It could be. Well, there's a lot of that at CES. The second one of our technologies that you didn't even know you need is the smart watch. Everybody thinks that Apple's going to be coming out with a Apple TV later this year, a real television set. But it could be that they come out with a new watch instead. And there's a company called Pebble that will be debuting here at CES. And so I guess one more device for you to carry around, one more device that synchronizes with all your other stuff through Bluetooth or some other kind of near-field thing. And one more device to keep charged. I guess another charging thing to bring with you when you travel.
The running watch has a purpose?
That's true. Well, and we've seen those be very successful, right? And all the quantified life stuff, like the Nike bands and so on, those have worked out quite well. Let's see, our next technology that you didn't even know you need, but you're going to want is a bendable phone. So Samsung's going to win the award for most innovative company, I think, because they're going to be showing these bendable phones. It's a phone you can put in your back pocket and sit on, and it'll bend, it won't break. That's not all. We've got 3 more for you here, just to wrap it up. These are the weird tech. So if you get time and you're visiting the CES show over in the convention center, be sure to go down into the lower parts of the show, the basement, the bowels, where you'll find things like this. Cell phones for your pets. I'm not kidding you. You know, now that everybody has a smartphone, or we're rapidly on a track where everybody's got a cell phone, they're going to try to continue to sell more phone subscriptions, and so it's time to give those warm, fuzzy mammals in your living room their own cell phone subscription.
They call home when they're lost? Is that...
That's right. If they stay charged up, they can call home. The second one is this fashion statement. A keyboard integrated into your pants. You're going to hear a lot about wearable technology, but somehow I don't think this is the one that is going to be the showcase, the thing to phone home about. And the third one is smart socks. I am not kidding you. This is a real thing. So here for $100, you can buy 10 pairs of socks that come with their own RFID chip woven into them, and then a little gadget so that you can organize the pairs and organize your sock drawer. And yes, there's an iPhone app for that, so you can keep your underwear drawer organized. That's for those super organized people, I guess, a way for them to track it all over the internet. Well, that's going to be it for our show. I want to thank our guests, Chris, Jan, and Kelly. You guys have been great. Thank you very much for making this show fantastic. And of course, our band, Paul Wertico, Dave Kane, John Mulder. Everybody at the new Media Expo, thank you folks for allowing us to do this. And a big shout out to my crew from Live Lab. I love you guys. You kicked butt. Gilliam, thank you very much. Barry Krause, thank you all for making that happen. And remember, folks, this show is yours. We can tell you about what's now, and we can predict about what's next, but we can't really shape what comes next after what's next unless we get your input. So we definitely want to hear from you. See you on Facebook, see you on Twitter, check us out on the web. And don't forget to try to beat the bloggers. Take that future quotient quiz. We want to see you. And if you score high enough, we're going to invite you back into the show. Join us for our next show. It will be shot in Chicago live at the Live Lab on January 23rd. So we're looking forward to seeing you. I'm Robert Tercek. This is Inventing the Future, and I will see you in the future.